I'm 32, juggling family, working full-time, and earning a bachelor's degree. At University of Phoenix, I earn career-relevant skills with every 5-week course. Skills I can use now, not just after graduation.
Earn skills in weeks, not years. Visit phoenix.edu.
This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. Powerful yet smooth. Contained but never tame. Proudly going their own way, but never going alone. This is the spirit inside Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Made at Buffalo Trace Distillery, the world's most award-winning distillery. Buffalo Trace is always perfectly untamed. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Franklin County, Kentucky. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. Learn more at buffalotracedistillery.com. Please drink responsibly.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is on Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox. Now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard, and that wooden stock and blued steel. Something that gives the most common man the most uncommon of freedoms. When ordinary hands can possess such an extraordinary instrument, that symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty. What? That's why those 5 words issue an irresistible call to us all, and we must. So, as we set out this year to defeat the divisive forces that would take freedom away, I want to say those fighting words for everyone within the sound of my voice to hear and to heed. From my cold, dead hands.
Well, that was, of course, Charlton Heston from the NRA convention in 2000.
Yeah, legendary actor and fuck bunkers gun loon, Charlton Heston.
Yeah, I loved him. He was in the, what was it?
He was Moses.
He was
Ten
Moses, and he was in Planet of the Apes. He was awesome.
He lost it.
Bit of an overactor.
Yeah.
But that was those old guys were like that. So, Jeff, you ever owned any guns or shot a gun?
Well, yeah. In fact, I don't think you know this, but I had a gun when you met me.
Really?
Yeah, in that little house in Hollywood,
okay, yeah,
the Beverly Center. Yeah, I had a Smith Model 19 357 Magnum.
See, if I knew that, I wouldn't become friends with you.
I know, that's why I didn't tell you. Yeah, you've never had any experience with guns, right?
No, I never shot one. Never cared to.
You never shot one?
Never shot a gun.
Interesting.
Because in New York, if you shot a gun, it wasn't for hunting.
It was a different kind of hunting, yeah.
I mean, I was a kid, but, you know, look, honestly, my mom didn't buy me that shit.
Right. You didn't have the army guns and shit.
Yeah. And, you know, I think they're fucking useless. But it's, you know, as we talked about it the other day, it's like rabbits out of the hat or whatever. There's no putting Pandora back in its box.
Genie bottle.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We're not going to talk about gun control or safety today, but it's too late. You know?
Yeah, what's the latest statistic that was 400 million guns? So, yeah, those things aren't going back into the gun stores.
Many people have said, hey, you want to go shooting? I'm like, yeah, and then I just never go. You know?
I would say, I mean, I don't have guns now, and I have no interest in a gun, but I would say it'd be fun to go shooting once just so you can see what it's like, because it will give you a slightly different understanding, a different perspective on the way gun owners feel about them. And I don't think it's healthy, but I think it's really interesting.
What do you mean you don't think it's healthy?
Well, because there's a tremendous sense of empowerment.
Yeah.
Just firing at a piece of paper 25 feet away.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I have shot little BBs at fucking arcades before.
no, not the same thing. Yeah. So, but did you play any war games? Did you do any of that stuff, or was it?
No, it was just not in my radar, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't.
And so obviously you never thought about hunting or any of that stuff.
No, and look, I sort of understand the hunting thing. Some places are overrun with deer and they have to hunt them, and
yeah.
But I don't know. I think the world would be better without guns.
But yeah, I don't see how it could be worse.
But why are we talking about guns today, Jeff?
Well, we're not talking about just any gun. We're talking about the custom-made 7.65 millimeter Walther PP semi-automatic pistol that Hitler used to commit suicide.
Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a weekly podcast that explores the human obsession with gathering and collecting not just objects of value, but objects of extreme rarity and infamy.
Today's episode, The Other Gun. First up, history's first gun. The fire lance was invented in China in the 10th century. It was basically a tube that used exploding gunpowder to fire a spear. Imagine the look on that guy's face, the first guy that got shot with one of those things. It was like the dude with the train spike in railroad spike in his head. That must have been pretty.
Yeah. So you know, dueling pistols, flintlock history, blah, blah, blah. Jumping right ahead a few centuries, we get to the good stuff in the middle of the 19th century. That's where we get our gunfighters, tuberculosis, John Wayne, and of course the gun everybody recognizes, the Wild West Colt 45 revolver. And amazingly, the basic operating mechanism of those things is still used today in every single revolver.
Yeah, the 19th century also gave us the Civil War, which produced a bumper crop of new and better ways to kill people. Guns got faster and easier to use, and better ammunition made them more accurate and reliable. Some of the Civil War guns are the foundation for a lot of the guns we still use today.
And in the middle of the war, Richard Jordan Gatling introduced the Gatling gun. Chances are you'd at least know one of these if you saw it. Basically, it's 10 barrels arranged in a circle and a crank to rotate the circle. Each barrel would fire as it went past the firing pin, so you could fire about 250 rounds as fast as you could crank it. It was big and bulky and difficult to transport and maintain, but when it worked, man, it launched a hellfire storm.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the only breakthrough in Civil War death machinery, but it was a big one for the first working machine gun. Incredibly fast machine guns like the ones in the Air Force's A-10 Thunderbolt and the M134 minigun are descendants of the design of the original Gatling gun. Also, World War I brought major refinements in machine guns and semi-automatic handguns, and there were quantum leaps in military technology in general.
And now we're going to skip to the modern era. Lots of guns from the Civil War era became staples of movie and TV. When they weren't being used to kill bad guys, they were used to kill Native Americans. Mm-hmm. From the beginnings of film up to almost the mid-'70s, cowboys and Indians was its own genre, and the Native Americans were rarely the good guys.
It's interesting that Westerns on TV more often centered on white guy gunplay. For example, before Steve McQueen was the biggest star in Hollywood, he had a TV show in 1958 called The Bounty Hunter, and the sawed-off Winchester Model 92 lever action rifle he carried is a great example. And there was the Rifleman, of course, starring Chuck Connors. You ever see that? You know, the porn movie he did.
Chuck Connors?
There's porn clips of Chuck Connors with a dude. Yeah.
Oh, that might be the greatest thing I've ever heard.
He also had something else hanging. He had a standard Model 92 in the Rifleman as well.
A Rifleman.
Well, if you were paying attention to that clip you just heard, you'll notice that before any talking, before even the announcer says the name of the show, Chuck Connors fires off 12 shots in 5 seconds. As a kid, I never quite understood why a rancher had to kill so many people, but I've always remembered this one moment. He mows down a whole bunch of bad guys, right? And his son is like 10-year-old son standing right next to him. And before the smoke is even cleared, there's all these bodies laid out. He turns to his kid and he says, "Killing is wrong, Mark." Oh, some call it murder. Some call it mentorship.
Of course. If not for the Colt revolver, Clint Eastwood would have been a catalog model. And he would have done a good job at it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we're not just going to let you walk out of here. Who's we, sucker? Smith and Wesson and me? Go ahead. Make my day.
So that was Clint Eastwood in Sudden Impact from 1983, where he still carried around a big revolver, but nowadays most of the guns are semi-automatics.
Yeah, and the one everybody associates with semi-auto handguns is the Glock, which is made in Austria. And it's probably the best example because they've sort of become to semi-automatic handguns like what Kleenex is to tissue. And one of the other big semi-autos that are used in lots of TV shows and lots of militaries around the world is the Italian Beretta.
Right. They're very similar to Glocks and nearly as popular, but between Austria and Italy, it's Austria for pastries and Mozart and pretty much Italy for everything else. Yeah, pizza and guns, yeah. One of the cool facts that distinguish Berettas from the rest is that it was founded in the early 15th century, which makes it not only the oldest gun manufacturer, but the oldest industrial company in the world.
And that brings us to the most controversial gun of our age, the civilian version of the military's M4 machine gun, the AR-15 assault-style rifle and its knockoffs. And by the way, AR doesn't stand for assault rifle, but we're going to make you Google that one.
Although ARs are by far the most popular rifle in the country, they are way down the list of guns used in crimes, but their popularity among mass shooters prove literally that if it bleeds, it leads.
And interestingly, the AK-47, which is the Soviet equivalent of the AR, has more stopping power. But let's face it, how much stopping power do you really need if your prey only weighs 45 pounds and it's hiding under a desk?
Every person in the world with an internet connection has seen a photo of an assault rifle right after every mass shooting. Some of you may have seen actual Republican Congressman Blake Moore, who was voted into office by a live human, American voters, which is not saying much, in Utah, which is not saying much, expresses his feelings on video about the weapon most often used to send fourth graders home early.
Representative Moore made a stop in Troy this week to unveil the AR-15 National Gun Act. Moore says it's a means of protecting the gun from those who want to limit its use and protecting the Second Amendment.
For nearly 2 decades, unconstitutional and un-American anti-gun groups have specifically targeted the AR-15, despite it being a cornerstone of American culture for over 60 years. If a specific firearm is synonymous with the term Americana, then it would be the AR-15.
Some congressmen have been handing out AR-15 pins like the ones they wear next to their American flag pins on their lapels, although in the video of the clip you just heard, Moore's only wearing the gun pin because, priorities. So to sum up, 1, thanks Apple Pie, AR-15 will take it from here, and 2, we need more laws to protect guns from people.
It'd be impossible to cover all major gun events in U.S. history, so we're going to pick a few of our favorites, and if you notice we haven't included the ones involving the slaughter of children, that's because that's not our favorites.
You've heard the slang term dead presidents to mean money, but here we're using the term dead presidents to mean dead presidents.
Yes, we are. So everyone's heard of Abraham Lincoln, and in 1965, No.
Not quite.
It said 1965.
I can't help what it says. It didn't happen in 1965.
I'm like fucking Ron Burgundy. I'll just read anything. Oh, boy. John Wilkes Booth wasn't the first actor with no credits on IMDb, but he's the first one to assassinate a president. Fucking out of work actors again. Yeah, it was 1865, I think. Oh, yeah. Ford Theater, where the assassination took place, was restored in 1968, and they've got John Wilkes Booth Derringer on display.
The next one was in 1881 when James Garfield, no relation to Andrew as far as we know.
Or the cartoon Garfield.
Or the TV show, right?
Cartoon. Also? It's a cat.
Anyway, a different Garfield.
Meow.
Garfield's one of the many presidents you'll lie about ever having heard of when the name comes up. Anyway, he was killed by Charles Guiteau, another guy you never heard of. And the most bizarre thing about this one is that at first the doctors couldn't find the 2 bullets that hit him in the chest, which kind of makes you wonder where they were looking for bullets.
Funny. In 1901, William McKinley was killed by a laborer named Leon Czolgosz. Czolgosz believed McKinley was the enemy of the good people, so he did what all of the good people do and murdered him. McKinley 0, irony 1. And that brings us to the star of any conversation about American political assassinations.
There's nothing we can add to the JFK assassination, so we won't try.
But they just released a bunch of new shit.
Yeah, with doxing people's lawyers and shit.
It's weird.
Idiots.
Yeah.
His assassin, of course, was Lee Harvey Oswald, or so they want you to believe, who was shot on live TV by a small-time wise guy who loved Kennedy, or so they want you to believe.
Right, yep.
Right before Oswald could bust the whole case wide open. The 23-year-old Italian-made Mannlicher Carcano that Oswald used isn't on display, but you can see a replica on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository Museum. It's been repurposed from its original use as a presidential deer stand.
In 1968, RFK was shot, and fuck me, the most cursed family since the Lemps, L-E-M-P. You should Google them if you think the Kennedys are cursed. We'll never know what kind of president RFK might have been, but we ended up with Nixon, so thanks, Sirhan.
And that brings us to the hit or miss section of the podcast, where we present the winners of the Nice Shot You Idiot Award for shooting at a president without killing him. Our first award goes to John Schrank, who took a shot at Theodore Roosevelt in 1912. Roosevelt was an ex-president and candidate at the time, and this is the first time anyone, in this case Roosevelt himself, blamed the lying media for creating a killer. He was about to give a speech when he got shot, but he was wearing a heavy coat, and he had a folded-up speech and his glasses case in the coat, so it partially stopped the bullet. So he goes up to give the speech anyway, and at some point, he opens his coat to show this bloody shirt, and he says, "I don't know whether you fully understand that I've been shot," which is a pretty stud move. So the crowd started beating Schrank to death, but Roosevelt stopped the whole thing and told them to bring him up to the stage where he actually talked to the guy. What a badass.
Wow. Other than Donald Trump, Gerald Ford was the first president to have 2 attempts on his life.
Oh, that's right.
Right. Lynette Fromm and Sarah J. Moore both tried to take out Gerald Ford. Lynette went by Squeaky, which is an adorable name for a member of the Charles Manson family and would-be presidential assassin. And that's why Sarah Jane Moore got so much less attention. Squeaky made the first attempt in Sacramento, but she didn't even fire before the Secret Service disarmed her. It turned out that the gun wasn't even loaded. I guess some people aren't made to be assassins, right? Anyway, Sarah Jane Moore, the other Manson knucklehead, gave it a go herself 17 days later in San Francisco.
She managed to miss with her first shot and wound a bystander with the other. We ran the numbers, and women are worse at killing presidents than men. But don't hate us, hate the numbers.
John Hinckley Jr. tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan in 1981. Many people know that Hinckley said he wanted to assassinate Reagan to impress Jodie Foster. Okay. All things being equal, we think that's the best motivation any of these fucktards had. Reagan was a total stud about being shot, but tragically, Hinckley also wounded a Secret Service agent, a cop, and Reagan's press secretary, James Brady. Brady suffered brain damage and was left disabled, giving birth to a background check law called the Brady Handgun Violence Protection Act in 1993. Some idiot gun owners still continue to push back against it to this day.
Hinckley used this cheap German .22 revolver, and it's not on public display, but I think I told you I actually saw it, right? Right. Long story short, I had access to the Secret Service Museum, which isn't open to the public, and the gun is there. It's like this really crappy little, looks like a toy gun.
Right. Finally, the most recent and another tragic one for the bystanders was Ryan Wesley Routh's failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump in 2024. I know it's not PC, but I kind of wish he didn't fucking miss.
The idiot nicked Trump's ear, which had the opposite effect that he was going for, because Trump made that defiant, raised fist, bloody face photo the cornerstone of his campaign. Routh did manage to wound 2 innocent bystanders and kill a fireman who stepped in front of a bullet to protect his family. Well done, Ryan.
So it's interesting. 2 of these attempts were with rifles. The rest were with handguns, yes?
Yeah, all of them, all of the others. And only one of these was even an assault rifle. So, yeah, everybody talks about rifles, but it's actually handguns that have killed all these.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that if they could go back in time, they'd kill Hitler. What would you do?
We'd love to hear from you, so please email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and the TikTok.
Discover Ralph's Club New York, the new fragrance by Ralph Lauren. With blackcurrant, vanilla, and sandalwood, this scent embodies the sensuality and confidence of Usher. Like the city that never sleeps, this masculine fragrance lasts for 12 hours. Ralph's Club New York. Ralph Lauren. Shop now at Macy's.com.
This episode is brought to you by JCPenney. Yes, JCPenney. And if you've been there recently, you know it's the place to go for jaw-dropping looks at brag-worthy prices. They've got something special for every style and budget, not to mention rewards and deals that make finding those hidden gems even sweeter. If you already shop JCPenney, you're already in on the secret. But if not, it's time to ask. Wait, am I sleeping on JCPenney? Shop JCPenney.com. Yes, JCPenney.
I'm Ashley Graham, and as a parent, I know the back-to-school transition can be a lot. When it comes to wellness, Ollie supports me and my family through it all. Kids Multi is big in my house. It supports their immune system, and they love to take it. A win-win for everyone. Shop these products at Ollie.com or retailers nationwide. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The Conjuring: Last Rites. On September 5th.
Come down, everyone in your house! Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
The Conjuring: Last Rites. Only in theaters September 5th. Rated R.
Yay, guns. Let's move on to the worst guns ever made.
Yeah, it was tough to narrow this list down, but we only have a little time. So these are our 3 favorites because we had 2 criteria. One is they had to be unlikely to work at all, or 2, they'd have to be more likely to kill the person with the gun than the person it was pointed at. The first one was a Winchester Model 1911 SL shotgun. Winchester named it the SL for self-loading, and it was called the Widowmaker, but not for reasons you might think. Long story short, because of its terrible design, shooters tended to put the butt against the ground and push down on it to load it, which worked, but sometimes it would blow their heads off, so, it didn't sell that well.
Number 2 on our worst gun list is the Colt Model 1885 revolving rifle. That sounds like a problem right there, just the revolving rifle. In the 1850s, there was no such thing as a rifle that could fire multiple times reliably, but Colt tried with its Model 1855 revolving rifle. For some reason, it was built upon the same incredibly bad design principle as the black powder revolver that could accidentally fire off a bunch of bullets without aiming them. That sounds like a selling point. That's bad enough if you're standing in front of it, but they could also explode, which was bad no matter where you were standing. Colt came to his senses in 1884 and stopped making them.
Just when you've heard it all. So we think of the Germans in World War II as being these, brilliant scientists, but they designed a rifle called the Krummlauf that you would think it looks like it was designed by Elmer Fudd. The barrel's actually curved, and it had a periscope sight, so the idea was you could fire it over walls. The Germans dropped them, of course, but interestingly, in the 2000s, the Israelis, who else, actually did develop a rifle called the Corner Shot that worked. If you want to see the German version, search German curved rifle or German Elmer Fudd rifle.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
So we're going to spend a minute on movie set gun tragedies. All were senseless and all were preventable. We're going to start this section with 2 points. Number one, under absolutely no circumstances should any actor or any unauthorized person have unsupervised possession of a firearm on a film set. Not ever, no exception.
And number two, which applies on and off the set, is that all guns are loaded, always, no exceptions. The first up is John Eric Hexum, a TV star from the 80s. He had a big .44 Magnum they'd been using in a scene that he never should have been allowed to take off set. And there was this long delay between setups, so he tried to make a joke about the boredom by putting it to his head. This is the tragic way a lot of people learn that just because a gun has a blank in it doesn't mean it can't kill you. When he fired it, the expanding gas from the exploding blank created so much pressure that it drove a quarter-sized bone chip into his brain. The poor guy was only 26 years old.
Next is one almost everyone's aware of, the death of Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee, on the set of The Crow. This also involved a blank fired from a .44 Magnum. In this case, it was more of a freak accident. A fragment in the chamber from the dummy round got overlooked when the gun was cleared. Those same expanding gases from the blank blew the fragment out of the barrel just like it was a bullet. Lee was about 15 feet away when it hit him in the abdomen. He died a few hours later in surgery at only 28 years old.
And the last is the most recent cinematographer Helena Hutchins' death on the set of Rust. It's hard not to find someone who doesn't know that Alec Baldwin accidentally shot Hutchins with a gun that was inexplicably loaded with anything, much less a live round. But this has been covered so much that if you want to learn more about it, you don't need us. We'll just say that the little shitweasel armorer who played it like it wasn't her fault was about 90% to blame. And we also want to mention that the assistant director, who also had some culpability, did the stand-up thing and admitted his own part in it. But talk about senseless. There's never, ever, ever an excuse for a live round to be closer to a movie set than the nearest gun store.
And we'll end this segment with a simple fact that might surprise you. Amazingly, in the last 100 years, after all the untold tens of millions of every kind of round fired by every kind of firearm you can imagine, there have only been 3 gun-related deaths on movie sets.
Nobody's going to argue that that's 3 too many, and especially so because they were all easily preventable. But if you compare that safety record to any job in the world, the takeaway is that everyone in film production takes gun safety very seriously, and they are very good at it. All the more reason why Helena's death isn't just tragic, it's infuriating.
There have been so many famous musicians that have been shot to death.
Sam Cooke, one of the greatest soul singers of all time, was shot and killed at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles by the motel manager.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin from NBC News. John Lennon is dead tonight of gunshot wounds at the age of...
Soul singer Marvin Gaye was shot to death yesterday in Los Angeles.
Star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25.
The music world is numb today, stunned by the violent death of gangster rapper Notorious B.I.G.
Phil Hartman, who gained fame on Saturday Night Live, was found shot dead in his home, apparently killed by his wife, who then committed suicide.
The clip you just heard was the report of a murder-suicide of one of the most beloved guys in the industry, if not the whole country, Phil Hartman. His wife, Bryn, shot him while he slept and then turned the gun on herself. Gianni Versace wasn't an actor or musician, but he was one of the most famous designers in the world when he was shot down outside his South Beach mansion. The shooter was a serial killer named Andrew Cunanan, who also murdered 4 other people.
So the next 2 guys we're going to talk about are famous people that actually did kill someone.
First is Robert Blake. For those of you who are younger than us, which is you, Robert Blake was a great actor who became a household name in the mid-'70s.
Isn't that with the parrot?
Yeah, it was Beretta with the parrot.
He had the parrot or the cockatoo?
Yeah.
That wasn't Columbo?
No, I forgot about the parrot or the cockatoo.
Yeah.
Anyway, this story takes place in the parking lot of Vitello's Italian restaurant in Studio City, California.
Have you ever eaten there?
I have.
It's really good.
Yeah. Blake and his wife, Bonnie Lee Backley, had an argument during dinner, so they left the restaurant, and as Blake tells it, when they got to the car, he realized he'd left his gun in the restaurant. Who hasn't patted their pockets on the way over? Oh, shit, I left my gun in the booth. Wow. Oh, God. Anyway, apparently he goes back out to the car, and holy shit, what do you know? His wife's been shot dead. So, long story short, he was acquitted, but he did have to pay $30 million in a wrongful death suit. So the moral of the story is don't leave your gun in a restaurant.
Definitely not. And then, of course, it's the legendary Phil Spector, who's a music producer who, for those of you young ones out there that don't know,
an icon.
Yeah, he loved guns.
He did.
I think he pulled the gun out on John Lennon in the studio.
Apparently he pulled the gun out on everyone at one time or another.
And I think he actually shot into the ceiling once when he was mad at the musicians.
No doubt.
But evidently he had a thing for taking women to his house and kind of kidnapping them.
Yeah, he'd hold them, lock them in closets.
Yeah, and unfortunately one night he went a little bit too far and killed Lana Clarkson. Probably because she wouldn't fuck him.
Yeah, that's
probably. And I mean, he was found. He wasn't acquitted, by the way, and he died in jail at 81.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to get into the most expensive collectible guns. There are so many categories and type of gun collectibles that we can't even try to make sense of. So we'll just talk about a few firearms we think are interesting. There are always some disparity in the value of any collectibles from list to list, but this will give you a sense of what's out there.
Number 4 is Simon Bolivar pistols. In 1825, the Marquis de Lafayette gave them to Simon Bolivar, who dedicated his life to liberating South American countries. One of the things that makes them really special is that they were made by Napoleon Bonaparte's personal gunsmith, Nicolas Noel Boutet, who's still to this day regarded as one of the finest gun makers to have ever lived anywhere in the world. They were sold at an auction at Christie's for about $1.8 million in 2016, so now in a private collection.
Number 3 is the Danish sea captain Colt Walker. Only 100 of these were made, and it's the only Colt to still have documentation in Colt's own handwriting from the date of its original purchase. That's kind of cool. A Danish sea captain named Niels Hansen bought it in New York and took it home, and a century later it survived the Nazi occupation by being buried in a garden. It sold for $1.84 million at a Rock Island auction in 2018. Number 2 is the Lafayette Washington Jackson pistol. This one's a bit of a surprise, making it only to number 2. The Marquis de Lafayette also presented these 2 pistols to George Washington during the Revolutionary War. Andrew Jackson, another president you'll pretend you've heard of if his name ever comes up, ended up with them in the early 1800s. In 2002, they ended up in a Christie's auction and sold for almost $2 million. Now they're in the collection of Fort Ligonier in Pennsylvania.
Number 1 is a wild leap in value. It's the gun that connects the most famous outlaw and lawman of the Old West. The gun itself is unremarkable. It's a standard Colt Action Army revolver, but it's the gun that Pat Garrett himself confirmed that he took from one of Billy the Kid's gang members. He started carrying it around as a daily gun, and that's the gun he used to kill Billy the Kid in 1881. It had been in the same collection for 38 years, but eventually it was sold at a Bonhams auction in August of 2021 for over $6 million. And whoever's got it now is keeping it privately. And nobody knows where it is.
And finally, the star of today's episode, the gun that Hitler used to put one in his own brain. It was one of his two most cherished guns. They were both 7.65 millimeter semi-automatics made by Walther, a German firearm manufacturer founded by Karl Walther in 1886. Walther personally made both of them for Hitler's 50th birthday, and both were ornately engraved and showy, but one of them was so over the top that you'd have to see it to believe it. You can find the images on Google, and like we so often do, we recommend you have a look at these things. The crazier one would make Antonio Montana blush. And that's the one that made its way to the U.S.
The story begins on the morning of April 29th, 1945, in the final days of World War II. An army soldier named Ira Palm had fought his way across France and all the way to Munich with the help of German soldiers who were trying to save what was left of it. So they get to Hitler's apartment, and Palm goes in first, but apparently Hitler had flown the coop for Berlin. So, they're rooting around the place and opening this cabinet and that drawer, and Palm opened Hitler's desk, and there, sitting right there, was this wildly engraved, over-the-top, ostentatious Walther. So he just stuck it in his pocket and left. He took it back home with him to Salisbury, North Carolina, and for some reason, he gave it to a pastor friend of his in Savannah named Charles Woodbridge. Then Woodbridge only had it for a couple of years because it was stolen in a burglary of his home in 1947. Of all the things, he like, oh, my TV's gone. Oh, Hitler's gun is gone.
Anyway, it popped up again at a gun show in Kansas City in 1950. The owner let a detective take it to a crime lab where he took some pictures of it, and then it fell off the radar again for 16 years. It's wild to think that this thing was just out there somewhere all that time, right? In 1966, one of the photos made it to the cover of Argosy magazine. The article inside said it was being offered for sale by a gun dealer in Cleveland.
Next thing is a Canadian gun and Nazi memorabilia collector saw the Argosy cover. And this guy had built a huge museum in his house for his Nazi collection. And he thought the gun would bring big crowds, but it didn't. So he sold it at an auction for $114,000, which at the time was the most ever paid for any item of military memorabilia. The buyer wanted to be anonymous, but apparently it changed hands a couple of times over the years until it ended up with someone on the West Coast who also wants to remain anonymous. But, you no doubt we'll see it again after they die.
Cool story, but not as cool as the subject of today's podcast, the other gun. It wasn't the more ostentatious one. It wasn't the one that's been in and out of collections all across the states. It was never in a museum or stolen and lost and found over the years, and it was never on the cover of a magazine. It's the other gun, the sidearm Hitler wore every day, and pulling its trigger was the last thing he ever did. 2 weeks to the day after that shot rang out, this radio broadcast did.
I only wish that Franklin D. Roosevelt had lived to witness this day. General Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations. The flags of freedom fly all over Europe.
We don't know where the gun is or even if it still exists. No one seems to, but maybe one of you have a clue, or maybe you even know where it is. A lot of people would sure love to see it.
And if it ever does turn up, what would the gun Hitler used to kill himself be worth to a collector? And what kind of a collector would want the other gun in their collection? Thanks for listening, and don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
And if you got a story about a one-of-a-kind collectible, please email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok. From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Whitkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by the Lonely Bulls.